Hello and welcome to Reliquary Duels Pre-Game Deck Tech, the show where we talk about the decks we will be playing on stream. Now, I am not Owen, but today I will be talking about the deck that he will be playing around Elsha of the Infinite, around the theme of Flicker. The goal of this Flicker deck is not actually to win through Flicker, instead it wants to use that ability to stall out the board state almost indefinitely, or until you can use flyers, mostly angels, to get through your opponent's defenses and beat them to death. Before we get into the first category, let's take a look at this deck's commander. Elsha of the Infinite is a legendary Djinn monk with a mana value of 5 and a casting cost of 2 generic, a blue, a red, and a white. It has the text of Prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It allows you to look at the top card of your library at any time, and also says that you may cast the top card of your library if it's a non-creature, non-land card, and you may cast it as though it has flash. While Elsha herself does not play into the Flicker genre of deck, she does provide a lot of things. She's used for card advantage since a lot of the cards you will be using are non-creature spells, and being able to pull out the needed Flicker, board wipe, or enchantment at instant speed helps keep you in the game immeasurably. She is also used to help plan just by allowing you to see the top card of your library while keeping those plans secret to your opponents. Now that we know what the commander can do for this deck, let's take a look at our first category, angels, flyers, and other murderous monsters. We're starting off with more of the interesting cards in this deck, because there will be a lot of repetition with what many of the later cards do. These are creatures, plain and simple, whose goal is to hit things while flying. It's not a very complex type. Restoration Angel, Wisp Weaver Angel, and Angel of Condemnation each flicker or blink a creature, allowing you to save something important or exploit an enter the battlefield ability. Emancipation Angel and Karmic Guide are used to protect your creatures from death, whether that be returning them to your hand or bringing them back from your graveyard to fight for you once more. In truly angelic fashion, Angel of Finality and Archon of Coronation both protect you from harm, whether it be threats in a graveyard coming to life once more, or preventing damage, potentially saving you from death, but their main purpose is to hit things. Hit things really hard! Finally, since this is the primary win con of the deck, let's take a deeper dive into some of the cards in this category. Feather the Redeemed is a legendary angel with a mana value of 3 and a casting cost of red, white, white. She has flying and allows you to recycle all of your flicker spells, even casting them indefinitely as long as you're able to protect her. Serra Ascendant is a human monk with a mana value of 1 and a casting cost of 1 white. It has lifelink, and as long as you have 30 or more life, Serra's Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. This card can change the course of a game if used aggressively. It can eliminate your largest threat before they even have a chance to harm you. And its lifelink sometimes can put you out of harm's way for almost the entirety of the game. Resolute Archangel is another angel, this time with a mana value of 7 and a casting cost of 5 generic and 2 white. It has flying, and the text, whenever Resolute Archangel enters the battlefield, if your life total is less than your starting life total, it becomes equal to your starting life total. While that is a mouthful to say, this card is one of the deck's win conditions, making it so if a player fails to kill you in one turn, you are healed to full as you flicker it over and over. It is the ultimate defensive card in this deck, and some people will just concede in frustration if you can demonstrate that this isn't leaving the game anytime soon. And while I can't speak for Owen, this last angel is probably one of my favorite of the creature type in the entirety of Magic the Gathering. Finally, we have Gisela the Broken Blade and Bruna the Fading Light. Gisela the Broken Blade is a legendary angel horror with a mana value of 4 and a casting cost of 2 generic and 2 white. It has flying, first strike, lifelink, and the text at the beginning of your end step, if you both own and control Gisela the Broken Blade and a creature named Bruna the Fading Light, exile them, then meld them into Brizella, Voice of Nightmares. Bruna the Fading Light is a similar legendary angel horror, but this time with a mana value of 7, a casting cost of 5 generic and 2 white. It has flying, vigilance, and the text, when you cast Bruna the Fading Light, you may return target angel or human creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. As mentioned in Gisela the Broken Blade's text, when you have these two angel horrors out together, they meld together into Brizella, Voice of Nightmares, who's a legendary Eldrazi angel, which is probably one of the most terrifying phrases in the universe. It has Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, is a 9/10, and has the text, "Your opponents can't cast spells with converted mana cost 3 or less." Once merged, this creature can win games single-handedly. Since your general player is trying to be as mana efficient as possible, because of that clause that prevents them from playing spells with mana value 3 or less, not only does it give a massive hindrance to their entire table and probably shut down most removal spells, it actually can sometimes completely shut off entire decks. Not to mention, the massive body on Gisela and her lifelink makes her a massive threat that puts all of your opponents on the defensive. Now that we've covered most of the creatures that we'll probably be trying to swing in for lethal with, let's move into our second category, repeat stuff. This is the category that has all of our effects that allow us to blink or flicker our creatures, and before we get into the fine print of each of the cards, let's first clarify the difference between flicker and blink. Flickering a permanent entails exiling it so it can return to the battlefield instantaneously. In this deck, we have Ephemerate, Cloudshift, and Essence Flux, which all flicker a creature for 1 mana. On the other hand, blinking a permanent entails exiling it and having it return on the next end step. In this deck, Otherworldly Journey, Teferi's Time Twist, Eerie Interlude, and Sudden Disappearance all blink 1 or more creatures. However, since flickering and blinking permanents is the main goal of this deck, we haven't limited our options to just those spells. Siren's Ruse, Justicier's Portal, and Momentary Blink all flicker creatures but for 2 mana and add some other benefit. Soul Herder and Conjurer's Closet both flicker our creatures on our end step, while Soul Herder is also a flyer that grows as we flicker creatures. Flicker Wisp and Glimmerpoint Stags are both creatures that can be flickered to create a source of blink. This is useful because sometimes we want to protect other creatures, and while Flicker can't do that, Blink definitely can. Owen will also be running Flicker Form, a 2-mana enchantment that can blink a creature at will as long as you have the 4 mana to activate it. While it isn't a traditional source of Flicker or Blink, Runaway Together, Dreamstalker, and Aether Adept all bounce some form of permanent. And while these can be used as removal effects, we can also use them to bounce our own things to our hand in order to recast them and reuse their ETBs. Now that we've gone through the spells that will do the actual flicker and blinking, let's move on to Category 3, Enter the Battlefield. This category contains all the creatures that we want to abuse with our flicker effects. Among these creatures, Abbot of Carol Keep, Merchant of Secrets, Pilgrim's Eye, Izzet Chronarch, and Cloudblazer all gain us some form of card advantage. Our next grouping of creatures that we want to flicker all involve controlling the board state in some way. Forbidding Spirit is a 3-mana 3/3 spirit that on ETB gives us a propaganda-like effect until our next turn. Dungeon Geist simply taps down a creature an opponent controls as long as we control Dungeon Geist. Daggercaster on ETB deals 1 damage to all opponents and creatures they control. Stonehorn Dignitary is a 4-mana 1/4 that on ETB actually allows us to skip an opponent's entire combat step. Cataclysmic Gearhulk is very simply a flickerable board wipe, and Demanding Dragon is a 5-mana 5/5 flyer that makes it a threat in the air and can deal 5 damage to a player unless they sacrifice a creature. And before we move on to get into some of the more interesting flickerable creatures we have Emrakul's Hatcher, which doesn't really fit into the control or card advantage category. However, it is still very powerful. It's a 5-mana 3/3 that on ETB creates 3 1/1 Eldrazi spawn, which can all be sacked for colorless mana, which means over time we can use it to generate a large amount of spawn and therefore a large amount of mana. Kept separate from the general group, the next 3 cards are all our prized ETBs. They are the key cards that we really want to flicker more frequently than any others. First of these prized fighters, we have Lavinia of the 10th, a 5-mana value legendary creature human soldier with a casting cost of 3 generic, 1 white, and 1 blue. She has protection from red, and when she enters the battlefield, she detains each non-land permanent our opponents control with converted mana cost 4 or less. And for those who don't remember, detain means until end of turn those permanents can't attack, block, or activate abilities. Lavinia is used to help protect you against aggressive players. It easily shuts down most decks that rely on combat damage, and completely shuts down any token deck. Playing at turn 5 is always good because it basically nullifies anything that was played before it. Following up Lavinia, we have the Djinn of Wishes. which is a 5 mana value Djinn with a casting cost of 3 generic and 2 blue. It has flying and has the text Djinn of Wishes enters the battlefield with 3 wish counters on it. You can also pay 2 generic and 2 blue and remove a wish counter from it to reveal the top card of your library. You may play that card without paying its mana cost, and if you don't, you exile it. This creature works amazingly well with Elsha the Infinite, since Elsha allows you to look at the top card of your library at any time, and Djinn of Wishes allows you to play the top card of your library for just 4 mana. In addition, by flickering Djinn of Wishes, we pretty much remove the wish counter cost that limits us to the amount of times we can actually pull this off. Last up for this close examination, but not last for the category, we have everybody's favorite wall, Paramikon Sky Rampart, who is a legendary wall creature with a mana value of 3 and a casting cost of blue, red, white. Paramikon has the text of Flying and Defender, and also says, as he enters the battlefield, you choose left or right. Each player may attack only the nearest opponent in the chosen direction and planeswalkers controlled by that opponent. Fitting very much into the control aspect of some of our creatures, this one is used to protect you from the stronger players and allows you to control the flow of the game. In addition, it can also be used to make alliances with players who would otherwise be killing it. Or worse, you! Finishing off this category, we have a handful of cards that, while not flickering or blinking, still help out our creatures with powerful ETBs. These cards are Cackling Counterpart, Flame Shadow Conjuring, and Mirror March, which all help to make copies of our ETB-filled creatures, and Luminous Broodmoth and Karmic Guide prevent them from dying by bringing them back to the battlefield. On our final stop before we cover the lands, we have Category 4, Other Cards. These cards, while not fitting specifically into any archetype of the deck, are just played for massive, massive value. Starting off this category, we have Zada Hedron Grinder. This 4 mana 3/3 with the best creature type allows it so that whenever we cast a single target flicker spell on them, it copies for our entire board. Panharmonicon, Cathar's Crusade, Warstorm Surge, and Anafenza Kin Tree Spirit are all just good in the deck because they benefit greatly and act as finishers for creatures that flicker in and out of the battlefield very frequently. On top of those optional finishers, we also have removal in the form of Rapid Hybridization, Pongify, Swords to Plowshares, and Fumigate. Here we are looking for efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. In this category, we also have our mana rocks, like Jeweled Lotus, Soul Ring, and Commander's Fear. Jeweled Lotus can only be used for your commander, but it's free, and Commander's Fear can also draw you a card once it's outlived its usefulness. As we hastily make our way through this category, we are also running a copy of Swiftfoot Boots, a mana value 2 artifact equipment that gives our equipped creatures hexproof and haste for just 1 mana. This powerful equipment can be used to protect some of our most important creatures, like Bracella, Restoration Angel, Elsha, or Panharmonicon. And to close off this category, we have Curse of Verbosity and Humble Defector, which will give our attempts of coercion and dissuasion physical form. Moving on to the final category of this deck, Category 5, we have lands. Also lands. Even more lands. And of course, don't forget, lands. Opal Palace, Mystic Monastery, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Path of Ancestry, and Transguild Promenade all tap for any color in our deck, sometimes with extra steps. Prismari Campus, Tranquil Cove, Prairie Streams, Boros Guildgate, and Azorius Guildgate all taps for 2 mana of my colors, unfortunately only 1 at a time, and all but Prairie Stream enter the battlefield tapped. In addition, Boros Garrison and Azorius Chancery tap for 2 mana, but they enter tapped and bounce a land back to our hand when it enters the battlefield. Last before the basics, we have Ash Barrens, which taps for a colorless or can be basic land cycled for 1 generic mana. For the basics of this deck, we have 17 plains, 3 islands, and 2 mountains. And that concludes this deck tech. I hope you enjoyed. To see this deck in action piloted by Owen, tune in to the Reliquary Duels 2 stream tomorrow, May 30th, 2021 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, make sure to check out the other 3 deck techs for the stream linked in the iCard above. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as well as leave a comment on this video about what you would run in the deck. Once again, I have been Carter, speaking for Owen. Thank you for watching. Please have a good day.